Queenstown in the Eastern Cape is more or less the same size as Kroonstad. But the stories the Truth Commission heard there were very different. This is Mlungisi Cemetery, where 11 victims of the 1985 Queenstown massacre lie at rest. The trouble began with a consumer boycott against white businesses in August. On the 17th of November, in the run-up to Christmas, the people of Mlungisi gathered at this church for a report back on a possible decision to relax the boycott. Daniel Lolwane was chairperson of the Mlungisi Residence ad hoc committee and one of the few leaders who had not been detained in the previous weeks. He addressed the people that day.
While I was giving the report, I saw a police Casper, a yellow police Casper, with a Captain Fender in it. They had a camera. You see that window there? It was open because it was hot inside. I saw him taking photographs. It was Captain Fender in that one. And suddenly, somebody told me that, as I was reporting, somebody tried to indicate to me that there was talking outside. So, as a chairperson, I had to investigate what was happening. Then I handed over to Mr. Mlungisi Residence, who was my deputy that time, was the secretary at that time. As I walked towards that door there, as I opened the door, a tear gas canister hit that door, and so I had to push back. And it was that time that I noticed that on the side there was also two Caspers. That is now that one. These two were those that belong to the South African Defence Force, and there were Caspers now surrounding the church building. But the tear gas canister was coming from a Casper between Baptist Church and Moravian Church. It was facing this church. So suddenly there was pandemonium because there was tear gas being shot inside. So the youth was running through the windows. Old people were ducking underneath the chairs. But there were some people running out. What I noticed, because I was standing right here, I noticed an old man, Lizo Ngana, being dragged inside, bleeding. And then he fell just where we were standing, convening the meeting. It's right in front of the pulpit. Then, as I said, there was pandemonium. The hall was filled with tear gas, and there was shooting all over. You could hear the shots. Now, because I was worried about this man, when these Caspers from this side shifted over to the side of Moravian Church, I ran quickly to the second house there to utilize the telephone. So I phoned Dr. Vahet. And then he said I must take the old man down to him, because I wanted him to come to the township because I could see that a lot of people were being shot. By the time I came back, I found the old man dead.
Outside the hall, police were driving through the township streets, wildly shooting. People were frantically scattering across the dusty old township, trying to escape the bullets of the sharpshooters.
Every person was feeling death because people ran into the houses. They could not be, although the police were also shooting into the houses as well. Hence, Mrs. Chobeka is still having a bullet in her stomach now. So the people, there was that tension. You see people running into houses. But the youth, realizing that by staying at home, it's going to be difficult because the police have now a chance of victimizing them by taking them from their parents. Now, what happened was that shooting lasted the whole night. The morning of the 18th, shooting started again because now the police were now terrorizing people in these Caspers. They were shooting every youth, every young man that they could see, and every young girl that they could see on the street.
One of those was COSAS member Tansankwa Kamati. His mother and brother Sipiwo testified before the Truth Commission this week.
Ndihambile ngomso ndaya emoshari. Xa ndifika imoshari yayimbi kakhulu. Kangangokuba ngelixesha basihlalisile sizokufanisa phambi komnyango lo wemoshari. Kwakugeleza igazi laliphuma ngomnyango lehambe lo ngena edrainini. Bavula ngexesha babevula ngalo sangena ngaphakathi babeleliswe omnye ngaphezulu komnye kangoba imoshari le isikhencizi babesicimile ngolunya yayinuka imoshari le igazi lilihlaza.
Do you see the body of your son?
Ndimbonile pha umzimba wakhe phakathi kwabanye. ndibonile ndamfumanisa uba udutyulwe entloko.
Her only other child, Sipiwa, who was 16 at the time, was also shot. He and his cousin managed to survive a torture ordeal here at the Queenstown showgrounds.
The police came to me and beat me and kicked me. He was taken inside him, and inside there, that's where they beat him very hard. They beat him. They tried to wear him a plastic, that plastic where he's gonna be suffocated and die. I was taken from here to the Tilden. I was blindsided. I was tightened up back. My hands were tightened up at the back, and then I was beaten there in Tilden. I was lying down. They left me there, knowing that, thinking that later they will find me there and then they will kill me there.
By the end of the next day, scores of people were wounded and dead. Many wounded were treated at home for fear of being arrested at hospitals. But these were the lucky ones. Some say up to 17 people lost their lives.
I would say, for people that were hurt, I would quote something like 300 to 400. But those that were killed, those that were killed and buried in Queenstown were 11. But as I'm saying that they started now rounding the township. There were people from the farms that used to come to the township. So when they went back to the farms, they were shot. Well, that is why I say those that were killed in Queenstown and buried in Queenstown were 11. But there were some people from the farms that were also killed.
They were laid to rest here in Mlungisi graveyard on a warm summer's day during a typical Eastern Cape mass funeral. The funeral party was surrounded by Caspers, and they were watched by the very same people who had killed them. Today, 11 years later, 17 November is still commemorated as the day of the Queenstown massacre. 7 years later, on the 3rd of December 1992, tragedy struck Queenstown again. A limpet mine, claimed to have been planted by the Azanian People's Liberation Army, ripped the local Spur restaurant apart. Shane Brody and his sister Michelle were amongst those present that fateful night. Both suffered serious shrapnel wounds. Shane was unable to complete his university education due to memory loss. Michelle is deaf in one ear.
We sat at this table over here, and later on, when we actually arrived here, there were 3 black people sitting at the table. And they were sat here for quite a while. The one chap actually was staring at my sister. I had my back to them, unfortunately. He was staring so hard at my sister that she actually asked, why is that chap staring at me the whole time? He sat there with a smile on his face, staring. And it wasn't long after that, 2 other gentlemen came and took their place. And a few seconds after that, we just heard this terrible explosion.
Les Barnes had briefly left his chair under which the bomb had been planted. A table leg and a 6-inch nail were later removed from his body.
My clothes, my shoes, I had contact lenses. They were blown out. I then asked somebody to help me. A young lady came across, and I gave her my number to phone. She then phoned home and told my wife what had actually happened. The ambulances seemed to take a long time to get there, but I'm not too sure how long it was. I was then taken to the Queenstown Frontier Hospital.
I had hair right down to my waist, and that had all set alight. It was burning. I was walking like hitching it out, and our skin, it must have been the sulfur or something in the bomb. It was burning like an acid. It had been poured from the top of your head right down to your feet. It just carried on burning. And it felt my ankles were so full of shrapnel, and my one ankle had actually broken, that when I walked out here, it felt like I was walking on stumps. When I got out there, I actually told my sister, please look, and just told me my leg's still there, because it was in such incredible pain.
I just feel that that the people who bombed us were obviously so blind with hatred that they didn't actually really know what they were doing. It became a very casual night for them.
I'd like to know who did it and for what reason. It was a political matter. As I say, a person should attack the police or the army. I mean, why attack innocent people sitting here enjoying themselves who've never had any ill feelings towards blacks before? And I thought the people should be found and justice should be done, because they haven't asked for forgiveness or anything.
And if the identity of the bombers ever became known, how would the survivors feel about amnesty for this deed?
That's for the Commission to decide, but I feel that as long as the thing is investigated, and if they should apply for amnesty and it's successful, I wouldn't really have a problem with that, no.